For a very brief recap of everything that happened, your group found yourselves obtaining a mission from Lionheart. Soon after leaving town, you got into a tussle with a group of mammoths, thanks to your dear friend Grimson. During the battle, Grimson attacked a party member, but eventually you guys managed to escape free. Now you guys find yourselves during short rest, looking to lick your wounds and figure out how you are going to deal with the Grimson situation. Klaus, you had approached Six, bringing up mention that this would probably be a good time to maybe get started on some practicing of meditation and other sorts of techniques. And we will now pick up with Six nodding in agreement and following you off a short distance away from the party, still within an eyesight, but a little further away.
Yeah. If just from what I can tell off of our map, I'm assuming that we're kind of in a plainsy-esque area.
Yes. To describe the area, it is very open plains. Some of the grass reaches up to your knees, while some areas seem to be patches that had been pushed down from past campers that decided to camp along the road before arriving to the city, or heading in the other direction, or just people deciding to camp for the heck of it. It is early noon, so the sun is rised up high in the sky. The skies are clear blue, clouds full and fluffy, and there is a very nice little breeze in the air.
Okay. Just looking around as they're walking away, are there like maybe a few sparse trees anywhere within the vicinity?
Yeah. Looking around, you realize off towards a bit more the distance, there is a gather of trees. You get the sense that going there, you might be sort of... You'd still be able to see the party, but they'd seem pretty much further away than before.
All right. Well, it's you said it's like winter season, isn't it?
No, spring.
Spring. Okay. Yeah. No. Then, if that's the case, then you just kind of look for a nice patch of like lower grass where it's not nearly as irritating to sit upon. Preferably a little bit less than just green, maybe a little flower patch. Who knows? Just anywhere where it's just nice and bedded and not irritating.
All right. Six follows along, saying she picked up a discarded stick she found the way to kind of help prop herself up a bit while she walks, and then when she sees you settle in, she'll move to sit as well and set the stick aside.
All right. Okay, one second. All right. Tell me what you've been doing so far, or show me.
All right. And she'll cross her legs, rest her forearms against her knees, closing her fists, not tightly, but just closed loosely. And she straightens up her back and closes her eyes. I sort of just start out this way and listen to the more calming sounds around until eventually it starts to disappear.
It's good, it's good. He goes ahead. I'm assuming her eyes are closed. He's gonna go ahead and kind of like close the distance for a bit, and he's gonna go ahead and take her hands, parting them away because I'm assuming they're lace, and he's gonna go ahead and curl them up into fists.
Yes, you have them in loose fists.
Oh, in loose. Okay. Because I guess I never actually explained entirely, but basically it's kind of like how do I put it? He has both of his fists, like let's say if you were to go ahead and punch your own fists, right? Like if both of your fists met in the middle, with your palms facing down, but instead, his left fist would be, or his right would be on top of his left, resting on top of one another. That's where he would typically have the blade sitting there. But he would go ahead and kind of rearrange it from kind of like, I'd assume, a more praying position to that.
Okay.
And kind of back away for a moment. And it's just, all right. Now, as I said before, your meditation, the entire reason why you ever are going to do this is because it allows you to first locate and then eventually be able to grow your own. For in the meantime, we are trying to figure out your noise. I said it before, but in case you need a reminder, everyone's key makes a different noise. Mine is more like a low hum. In fact, and he's going to go ahead and within a few inches from where she's sitting, he's going to be facing her, taking his own meditative pose as he has been for a while now. And he sits right in front of her. Here. Calm your mind and try to take your attention from yourself and over to me while still drowning out everything else.
Do I keep my eyes closed or...
Keep your eyes closed, yes.
But focus on you?
Think of it like this, right? You may be focusing on the blades of grass dancing in the wind itself, your own breathing, your own heartbeat. I'm a living person too. Focus on my breathing, my heartbeat instead. Every single thing that's living, my teacher had taught me, sings an imperceptible tune. That is your key, right? If you keep quiet enough, if others have a strong enough key, especially mine, you'll be able to find theirs before you find your own. Maybe if you find mine, you'll begin to know better what to look for. Does that make sense?
I think so. So yours sounds like a low thrum, so I'm supposed to listen out for a low thrum?
Yeah, kind of like a low vibration.
All right, let's give it a go. I should take a couple deep breaths and fall into a period of silence and try to listen in, and I will do a roll.
Yeah. He'll sit there too, and he's going to gather his key to where if she manages to hear it, all it will be is just a but of course a lot lower.
Alright, I did a roll. There's a long period of silence of nothing. If at any point he kind of peeks and I open a check on her, there's like sort of this like bit of a furrow to her brow. Like you get the sense she's trying to focus really hard, but is kind of struggling.
He'll peep up again quietly, or quieter this time, and he's just like, don't force it. Life, it's soft, like a river, like water. It'll come to you eventually. Just tune out everything, your thoughts, emotions.
How do you turn those things off?
Open your eyes real quick.
Shall I open them?
He looks directly at her and then kind of looks up, looks around at the surrounding area, the sun, you said there are sparse clouds?
Yeah, a number of like large, very fluffy, nice-looking clouds up in the sky. It is a very nice day.
Let me put it this way, right? Naturally, every single person has something on their mind. You do, I do. He kind of like looks over. Vedic Tenzing, Crimson. Every single person has something on their mind. Every person has something in their heart. Put simply, you're not erasing them. Just like if you were, laughing with someone and they accidentally, I don't know, hit you or something. You know how you can just roll off the pain as if it never happened because you're too busy laughing, right?
Right.
Well, it's similar with that, right? It's not that you just stop that, I've meditated when happy or angry. It's that you no longer allow that to drive where your mind is. What you're doing is you're letting everything else, your daily distractions, missions, everything else, fade into the background and allow silence to take over instead. Right now, here, let's try an easier technique. Instead of your key, if you remain still, if you remain quiet enough, you can actually hear your own heartbeat. Here, first, and he will go ahead and raise 2 fingers, kind of stopping, going slower, just kind of wordlessly asking for consent to touch her neck.
There's like a brief moment of sort of like an unconscious sort of tension, but she soon nods her head and unwraps the scarf that she always has around her neck and sets it off to the side, exposing the intricate branding on the front of her neck.
He's going to go ahead and take the 2 fingers and press it lightly against her jugular.
Sorry. Serious.
He shakes his head and he like quirks an eyebrow at first, but like shakes his head. And just, you can feel that, right? The slight thump.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead, go back into your meditative stance.
Takes another slow, deep breath, closes her eyes.
And basically, similar to that of like a kid with training wheels, at first, he's going to push her along like a kid first taking off the training wheels, I should say. First, of course, he's going to push her along. But eventually, while she's still focusing on that sensation, he's going to take his finger away very, very slowly to where it is almost as if it was never there in the first place. Do you still feel it?
Yes.
And with his hand right next to his own face, he's going to say, "Open your eyes."
She opens her eyes.
I wasn't...
Looks momentarily surprised that he had pulled his hand away, and then looks down and back up at him again with a sort of like very curious glimmer of interest in her eyes.
You see, every single day we have sensations, feelings, and thoughts, all sorts of things that our body purposefully ignores. Right? You may have had thought things that you never thought of. That didn't come out right. You may have thought things that wasn't brought to your mind immediately, but later on you feel as though you always knew, right? Or a sensation in the deep pit of your stomach that you may have ignored, but you always still feel, even if you're not aware of it. It's the same thing with your ki, and it's the same thing with your heartbeat. Your body doesn't feel as though it's necessary to focus on these things, so it tunes them out. What I'm trying to have you do is tune out these other things so you can begin to focus in on your ki. Right then, with your heartbeat, you didn't notice it until there was a resistance on your neck.
So, it is sort of like ignoring what is there, even if it is there.
If that's how you want to look at it, yes. I would personally say it's more like... It's more like accepting the fact that the sensation is just a sensation and nothing more. Like I said, you get used to something and then it fades into the background, right? The reason why we feel and think so much is because it's always new stimuli. You need to accept these things as exactly what they are. A stimuli. Nothing more, nothing less. Don't let whether or not you had patched that one leather piece that had broken off a second ago. You can worry about those things later. Like I said, it's not self-denial. It's letting everything tune out for just a moment before eventually you can get back to those things. That's what I mean. It's not ignoring. Ignoring is ignorant. It's bad, but this... And he kind of motions towards his eyes, kind of getting motioning towards her to kind of close her own again.
She'll close them again.
Repeat with me. These thoughts and feelings
These thoughts and feelings
are all in my head.
are all in my head.
I'm the one in control of these thoughts and feelings.
I am the one in control of these thoughts and feelings.
So for as long as I am sitting here,
So for as long as I am sitting here,
for now, I will put them to bed.
for now, I will put them to bed.
Now, like I said before,
Now, like I said before,
you can stop that now.
there's like even though her eyes are closed, there's a momentary grin on her face.
He as well is, but again, only because their eyes are closed. And he kind of returns his face back to normal and is... Everything that's going on within your head, your feelings, everything, just for now, they are nothing more than those things, thoughts and feelings. Focus on whatever it need be, but again, like I said, try to focus on my breathing, try to focus on my life. That's your first step before you begin to get to your own.
All right. I am in control. I am in control. I am in control.
Yes.
Takes another deep breath and she will try again.
I'm not sure if you've already been doing it, but assuming that this is a monk thing, I'd assume it'd be a perception check. Wisdom.
Yep, that is what I'm doing.
All right.
Okay. A completely serene look comes to her face this time. She's still holding the positioning that he had set her in. And then eventually a small smile comes to her face. I can hear it. Your thrum.
He's staying quiet at first, but all right. Now, here, I'm going to do something. Keep focusing.
All right.
For a moment, he's going to enter his own meditative stance, and he's going to make it where the pitch begins to not. Actually, here, let me say this. Tell me when you can no longer hear it. And he's going to begin to slowly push down the volume. I am an expert of this for years now. It's a lot stronger than a lot of other people, so I'm going to now bring it down to around where you would be. And he's going to lower it much, much lower, considerably so.
Alright, I will have her roll again with a higher DC. Alright, and as he's lowering the thrum of his key, there's the continued silence as Six silently listens in, specifically for his sound. And when she hears that there's still this consistent noise, she speaks. I still hear it.
For a moment, he stops in kind of like almost a bit of surprise, and all right, now this is going to be a bit hard because you still don't know what your sound is, but try to then find your own. Slowly fade from that center, my soul, which is what you're listening to right now, and try to figure it out for yourself. Focus into yourself.
So try to push aside the sound of yours and focus in on what I'm sounding.
Yep, you may have noticed, but every single time that I have stepped away from the rest of the group, it's because, frankly, everyone else's lives they get in the way. They are very loud to me. You need to step away in order for you to feel 100% with your one self. You can do it around me because you are still learning. But anyway, go ahead.
All right, let's give it a shot again. Okay, I got this. And all right, there is another long pause of her listening in. The serene look still on her face. And for a period of time, it kind of makes it seem as if she's struggling to hear it again, but rather she speaks up again. It is like a small clock. A ticking noise.
All right, this is good. Now, you've found it. It's there, it's tangible. How does it feel? For me, it almost always feels warm.
It feels familiar.
Well, this is no small achievement. Right now, you just found the very essence of your life.
I did! Yes! Oh, sorry. Right, of course. And she'll quickly fix her up her position again.
He was listening in almost to hers as well as he was sitting there. But the moment that she gets excited, he can hear the disruption, the palpitation of that very internal heartbeat, and he's just, yeah, he kind of like gives her a bit of a look, and he's just like, yeah, go back to it.
Sorry. Complete control of my emotions.
Complete control, yes. All right.
Can I ask you something, Klaus?
Go ahead.
If people can be trained to hear the sounds of their key or others, is it possible that if I learn this, if one day, worst case scenario, of course, but if one day something were to, I don't know, someone were to take you or something, is it possible I would be able to listen out to see if I could hear and pinpoint your key?
He kind of thinks about it for a moment. Well, you know, key is, it's different than how do I put it? When Varric uses that sending spell thing, I don't know exactly how it works, but I'm underneath the assumption that if it's able to find someone specifically, maybe it taps into the memory, but we all have a signature, like I said. And I don't think it would be offshot to say that it maybe targets the person's key. But in our case, you know, it's feeling another person's soul. I think it might be possible. I've never thought about it. I've only ever done it at close range. And there's no way in hell that I don't think you could do it for someone that's, you know, newer. If it were between me and my master, and his face almost drops a minute. If it were between me and my master, then I think maybe it would be possible. He never got to teach that to me.
She peeks an eye open at... What was your master like?
For a moment, a sort of a smile comes to his face as he kind of eyes almost twinkle onto a spot of nostalgia. Crazy bastard. He was ruthless, strict, the strictest person that I have ever known, to be honest. But more than that, he cared about me, about what he believed in, this martial art. When he kind of like slowly nods to himself. When nobody else did, he was always the one to believe in me.
Relaxing her position just a little bit, she opens both eyes at that. look over his expression and then looks down her hand. When it feels like the world is against you, just having one person believe in you can mean a lot. I get it.
He kind of quirks an eyebrow at that. Did you have someone in your life similar?
More recently, teacher. She gives a small grin at that, looking at him, and then closes her eyes to get back into her position again. Just one person, but as you said, it can mean a lot.
It takes him a second, but eventually he kind of speaks up, and it's just, come on now. Tenzing, Varric. I'm sure they believe in you too. We've seen the way they look at you. You're family to them. Or something like that. Again,
she opens her eyes again, looking down, but she keeps holding the position. Smile is still on her face, but there's a more distant look at her eyes as she speaks. Tenzing and Varric, of course. I know they care lots for me, but I don't blame them, of course. What with myself being mute for so long, and when they met me, I was like that as well, and I was scared for a good period of time, since it was honestly literally just me having just been born, sort of. And while I understand that they care, I always sort of just blended into the background. I was often forgotten that I was even there.
Tell me, back when we first met, who taught you how to use that bow? If you really don't have any of your memories.
It was just given to me by, I believe it was Tenzing who let me borrow it. But I never knew how to use it, and I still don't.
All right.
But learning how to hold it, at least, and fire an arrow, I taught that on my own when the others were fast asleep. But even if I could learn how to hold it and fire, that doesn't mean I could teach myself to land a shot.
So, what you're telling me, it sounds like, is that you are... When you said it yourself, you were practically reborn in that area. I think what you're telling me is that when you had first gotten here, because of how you were, when you had first arrived, you, and I suppose neither of us can blame them, but you came into this world helpless. So I think they may have put you, kind of, what do you call it, pigeonholed you into that area. You know, when you have ever protected anyone who is at first defenseless, kind of like maybe a mother towards their child, you can sometimes forget that at some point, or I guess even at any point, they can defend themselves. I think that's may have been what happened. I don't think that they are the types to ever put you down or anything. I doubt that if they ever have, they intended to. But it sounds like since they have found you, since they found you helpless, they may be accidentally treating you as if you still are. Does that make sense?
Basically, because they found me a certain way. That is how they believed me to constantly be.
Yeah. Trust me, if you had erupted from that fountain and started beating everyone's ass, I doubt they would have given you a second thought.
Wish I could have.
That would be a sight to see.
Apparently, the only reason they stumbled across me was because there were rumors going around that there was a ghost. And you see her, like, look herself over. She's just like, I'm not ghostly.
He kind of looks her up and down for a moment, and it's just like, I mean, does she still have the all-white getup, mostly? Or...
Yeah.
He's gonna look at her directly and kind of avert his eyes slightly, and he's just gonna nod like, mm-hmm.
She squints at him. I am not ghostly.
You'll stop becoming ghostly the moment you actually decide to put on another color that isn't white.
She looks down at herself at that and looks over at him and is just like, it's not like I had much of a choice. Last time I let the others help me with picking clothes for myself, Varric dressed me like a bright balloon.
I mean, that is Varric, another bright balloon. That actually brings me to that. If you're going to begin to train, you can't train in that. You need something actually more combat ready. But we can worry about that later. Well, then again, how do you feel about showing skin?
She makes like a gesture, so covering themselves after being caught in the shower is just like, Klaus!
Klaus looks at himself down and kind of looks back at her and just shrugs. Do you think I give a damn?
I was going to make a comment, but I feel like if I do, I will get hit, so I will keep it to myself.
Nah, the hitting is saved for sparring practice. Don't worry, you're safe. For now.
Oh, wonderful. But, she gets sort of a slight complicated look on her face. It's just like, this sort of ties back to our time at the inn when Tenzing offered to, well, help with burns on my back as well. How do I... There's a period of time where she's clearly trying to figure out how to word what she's thinking.
He sits there patiently.
Even if I have no memory of it, this, and she gestures to the branding on her neck, marks me as having been once a slave. And it is not necessarily the only thing on my body that is proof.
You don't have to show me, but where are those things?
On my back. from shoulder to lower waist.
All right. He's going to go ahead and start reaching for the top half of his clothes, the top half of his armor. And he's going to go ahead and kind of like take that part off, kind of like lifting it off. And he kind of goes ahead and points over towards his deltoid, and before you see a heavily scarred area with what seems to be a faintly drawn circle. Whatever may have been in the middle, or that circle on its own, had been utterly demolished. And then, of course, on his back, he has that large, disgusting gash, very ripe with more scar tissue, and he just kind of... It's not necessarily... Well, no, I do hide them. But even with these types of things, and whatever... I'm not sure what you are afraid of, whether or not it is other people seeing them, or the idea of them being out in the open, but even with the way that I dress, I make sure to keep at least those two things out of the public eye. And as far as your stuff goes, I'm sure we could do something about that. You said it goes from your neck to your shoulder, or no, from your neck to your back, then to your lower back?
The neck, here, and she gestures again to the markings there. This is, the ink or tattoo or whatever you want to call it that's there. My back is an entirely different matter.
Entirely different design.
And she kind of fiddles her thumbs for a bit. It's just like, I'm not exactly a weapons expert, but I get the sense that a good portion of them were probably from a whip. But there are sharper areas where it was probably some sort of... what is that called? Where you press into fireplaces. That thing, probably.
Visibly, he kind of recoils a bit before he kind of re-establishes. Branding. He kind of like licks his lips as he kind of looks down to think. Alright. Neck, back, and one other place.
Well, though not as bad in the other areas, it is mostly my back, but she reaches for the sleeve of her robe to roll it up by her shoulder, and when she brings her arm forward, you can see a number of lashes across her upper arm, along the back part. And she's just like, the other arm is the same, and there's some on my thighs, but not as off-putting, I suppose I should say.
Looking at her with a bit of an appraisal, he kind of like nods. Alright. We can cover most of your back as far as it goes with something tighter, like a tighter shirt or bandages, something to obscure the area. Your thighs and whatnot, that should be fine, whether or not you end up wearing I don't know, pants or something like my own self. Likely my own self because it allows more freedom. I never actually told any of you this, but my get up, it actually comes from my master. My master, I already told you that the lot of it is about speed. Everything that they do, it's not just power, it's all from speed. Speed is what births the power. The reason why I dress the way that I do is specifically to facilitate this. It allows me to move without error, without friction. Hell, why do you think I was able to run as fast as Tenzin can gallop?
That was impressive, by the way.
And he kind of like smirks at that and kind of points back towards her legs, and back at his chest, and he says, that was actually part of what the key can do.
Are you telling me that at some point I could outrun Tenzing?
With a bit of a smile to his face, he nods.
Oh, he's going to be so mad. She's delighted grin on her face.
Normally, I would chastise for, questionable motives, but spite can be a pretty good motive.
I am glad that you understand and agree.
For a moment, his eyes kind of avert before he kind of nods. Yeah, but hold on, we're getting off of track. Alright. Now, this is just underneath the assumption that you're going to be able to get it right immediately. In fact, actually, I have to let you know, as far as it goes, you're actually progressing a bit faster than I did. As far as key goes, you would be surprised how long it took for me to find that damn thrum. But, go ahead into your place of nothingness again and try to find it. But this time, once you find it, imagine if you were... How do I say it? Imagine if you were taking both of your hands on top of your key, your soul, and you were beginning to push it down into your legs.
Push the sound down towards my legs?
If you want to imagine it as just the sound, then yeah, that works too, but yeah, that's what you're trying to do. You see, I mean, here, just for the sake of an example, and he kind of reaches his hand up, and instead goes ahead and places a direct palm over her ear, and inside of his hand, as if it was an actual sound that was coming out of his hand, the same vibration should be echoing through. You can hear that, right?
Yes.
That's because currently, subconsciously actually, I am pushing my key to every single corner of my body. My body is my weapon, so I have to constantly work at it to have it perform at maximum potential. Soon you will be the same, but for now, like every single other person's key, it's trapped right in the center of their chest. What you need to do now, here is a way that you can imagine it. Close your eyes and get into your sense.
All right.
All right. Imagine that when you find your key again, it is a pond, a lake.
All right.
Now, imagine if you were a god, something I'm sure you can do, and take your hand, your finger, and drag a pool from your chest. This is going to be easier, but begin to drag that pool. Drag a river into your right arm. Have it flow slowly into that other area and let it take over. It's a warmth, right? So just feel it as it begins to move towards that area.
I'm gonna have a roll. Let's see.
Alright. I like to think that since it is closer to the chest, it's easier than the legs.
Okay. Alright, she concentrates, trying to copy, as he said, and focusing on the image of a river. After a beat of silence, she says, I can sort of feel it up towards my elbow. I'm having a bit of difficulty going further than that.
For a moment, he stays silent and kind of like thinking, it's just like, there was one thing my master always used to say. What was it? Before eventually... Alright, bear with me. He's gonna go ahead and, while she's still meditating, he's gonna go ahead and keep it going. And he's gonna go ahead and take the, her bottom left hand and take his left and hold it. And in his own meditative stance, he's going to go ahead and begin to create that same thrum again, which in her head should feel like that same ticking noise, but it's slowly beginning to coalesce with the deep thrum. You feel that, right? At the very tips of your fingers.
Yes.
Chase it.
All right.
I've been trying to... Wait, real quick before you do. I've been referring to your key as a separate entity from yourself, but you have to remember, this and you are the same thing. It's another aspect of you. If you wish to take it to this area, it has to listen. You feel where it's supposed to go through my key, chase after it. Will all of yourself to go after it, and your key will budge too.
All right. I will allow advantage with that one.
Different perception.
Oh my god.
What?
I didn't need the advantage. She nat 20'd. So, closing her eyes, she focuses very hard. And soon after, she feels a sensation raise up towards her fingertips to meet Klaus's. And Klaus, does he also have his eyes closed or open?
He has his eyes closed, yeah.
Alright, Klaus would actually feel the tips of where their fingers meet, hers take on a more prominent warmth. She speaks, it's just like, I think I've got it.
As this is happening, he's just going to create with his own mouth, just tick, 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 on the same beat that her own is. Yeah, you can feel it. All right.
And since he has his eyes closed, he won't be able to see her, but he will probably be able to feel the excitement as that ticking sensation increases in speed in her excitement.
That's oh man. Ugh. In fact, actually, no. I would like to say that since they are essentially linked in this moment, in a way, both his key and kind of the slight changes in just what he's doing is just both almost reprimand her. It's just focus.
Right, focus. Sorry, I'm just very happy at the moment. Okay.
As for a moment, his the calm base turns into just like a bit of a peak, just a bit of a harshening for a quick moment before returning back to normal. All right, now we're going to do the same thing, and kind of with because I'm assuming her legs are crisscrossed.
Yep.
He's going to do the same thing, similar to the heartbeat thing. And he's going to go ahead instead, after releasing her hand, going to place 2 fingers kind of on the middle of her calf. Now, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but chase it down here. You're so far a fucking natural. I'm kind of jealous.
Honestly, I wouldn't be. Clearly, this is just because I've got a very good teacher.
Yeah. Just focus your fucking key.
It's okay to take a compliment once in a while, but alright.
Let's get you on your feet, then you can thank me.
Alright. This one is going to be with disadvantage, though, because this is harder.
Yep.
Alright, so she focuses. You said his fingertips were by her ankle?
Basically. And in that way, he's channeling a small bit, but as she gets closer, he's going to do the same thing, essentially, where, he gave her something to chase after, but now he kind of takes away his hand and returns it back to his own fist, and is just kind of carefully watching, like, with almost a bit of an anticipation, like, is she going to feel it? But
so he has his eyes open watching?
this time, yeah.
Alright. With his eyes open, he would see that what had caused that warmth before is this barely visible sort of white glow to her skin. And he will see as that glow travels down one leg towards her ankle where he had his fingers rested. As she rolled a 19 with disadvantage.
Damn, chick. Damn. All right. All right. Now he's going to begin to speak again. It's just, all right, you feel that tingling sensation. Kind of like both of your legs almost fell asleep. You can feel tiny little pin pricks across your skin, right?
Yes, there's sort of the prick, yes, but also a warmth.
You see right now, your key, it's detected that something is incorrect. And it's doing as life does right now. It's trying to fix it. Now the question is, will you let it?
There's a moment's pause. With him watching, he can probably see the serene expression turn to a brief momentary upturn of the brow of uncertainty and momentary fear, and that light that had been glowing just a little bit above her skin seems to flicker and fade before she kind of furrows her brows again, more to a look of concentration, and would hear her muttering to herself, "This power is mine. I am in control. I am in control. It is okay." And I will roll. All right. So with her muttering that, it begins to flicker and fade more, much stronger, and then eventually the light seems to dim away completely.
Klaus will reach for both of her hands and kind of pull them away from their meditative stance, and it's just, you can open your eyes now.
She opens them, and the frustration is very clear on her face.
Like I said, this is... No. This is all a practice session, and you did spectacular up until that moment. Like I said, it's like a flow. You can't point up at the sky and tell it to rain. You can't point up at the clouds, the rain, and tell it to suddenly be sunny again. You can't get the moon to fall, the sun to rise whenever you want to. It takes its own course, because like I said, this isn't just magic. You can't force it. It's life. But that being said, when I asked you that question, I was poking at what I've noticed to be kind of one of your biggest fears. This past of yours. You don't know what it is, but I can tell from how you've been looking. It seems to terrify you, does it not?
She gives a heavy swallow and nods her head. Yes.
When my master found me, he found me when I was not in a good place at all. He, I may have been, I don't know, like 20 at the time, somewhere around that. Already a man, but still very much a child. And I was terrified of something as well. I've been chasing after it my entire life, and I could never attain it. I had an answer for everything, and that was just the one thing that evaded me, but...
What was it?
His face kind of tenses. He shakes his head. I can't tell you right now, but I can tell you how you can maybe work at it. My master's words, not mine. I'm still working at it, I admit. But for me, and his face almost twitches, my fear is something I might never be able to get rid of. But I'm still able to meditate, I'm still able to train, and the reason why? It is because I've learned that it's okay to be afraid. That,
And he, like, it almost looks painful. Like, every single thing he's, like, choking himself out to say. As he kind of closes his eyes, turns his head, and just kind of, like, almost grimaces.
It's not
You need-
exactly fun to admit your flaws, is it?
is it ever? He kind of gives her a pained smile.
She gives a wincing one in return. It's not fun to potentially open yourself up to ridicule or disgust or critique.
You have to learn to be okay with being afraid. That, like everything else that I had just said, your thoughts, your feelings, that's the worst part about fear. It's this mixture between both. Invalid sometimes feelings and invalid sometimes thoughts. They team together to create this disgusting concoction that clouds both. That's what I hate about fear, but there's no way for you to get past it if you can't first become okay with the fact that you feel it.
She looks down at her hands again. Is there a way to sort of fight these contradictory feelings of, yes, there is fear and I need to be able to admit that, but wanting to prove that I'm strong enough and I am not scared.
Yeah, could you say that one more time? I just want to be able to understand fully.
Yeah, she said, is there a way to fight the contradictory feelings of admitting that she is scared and being able to progress, but also wanting to prove that she's strong and not afraid?
Well, I'm about to give you a very disappointing reality. No one is incapable of feeling fear. What makes you strong is being able to combat it. There's never going to be a time in my life where I will reach a time where I can suddenly stop being afraid. You know, sometimes there will be moments where peace will come over me and I will be able to, for a moment, be okay with it. But as long as life continues to throw random things at you, you can never stop feeling fear. You can only change your reaction to it. So, you can accept the fact that you are afraid, but if you want to get strong merely to chase away these bad feelings, that's not going to work it out. The strength, it's not to chase away any fear or correct something. It can be used for such, but this training that I'm going to be putting you through, it's for yourself. Not whatever demons, skeletons you may have in your closets. It's for you. So, by teaching you what I can, I can't promise that you will suddenly stop being afraid, but I can promise that you will better learn how to combat it. But first, you have to be okay with feeling afraid. I guess a way of putting it, like my master says, how can you fight something that you can't actually see? How can you fight something that you can't acknowledge? If you can't even accept the fact that you are afraid, you'll never be able to fight it. Does that make sense?
Her gaze drops down to the grass for a moment, concentrated furrow to her brow, before it relaxes a little and she nods her head. All right. All right. Then something maybe to help myself. She glances over at him. Could we make a promise that whatever is said during these training sessions, and because I get the sense that this sort of strength comes from a lot of mental fortitude, lucky for me, could we perhaps...
You want confidentiality, I'm assuming?
Yes. She gives like a little wince and glances off towards where the group is. They already see me as weak and frail, and I don't want to give them further fuel for that.
Tell me what all you don't want them to hear, and I won't utter it at all.
She gives a sigh at that, and then a more relieved glance his way. I think it is more so that I'm struggling to admit something is scary when there is another person around to hear. But if I want to get stronger, and if it is as you say, she looks up towards the sky and kind of gives like a... She doesn't say anything out loud, but her lips are moving like she's talking to herself, trying to hype herself up a little. And it's just like... Alright. I am scared, and that is okay. Right? That is okay. Right?
He looks over towards her. Remember when I had told you about that angelic being, that goddess that I had killed?
Yes?
I'm going to be honest. When I saw this radiant, wing-bearing armor-wearing woman with a flaming fucking glaive. I was terrified. She nearly killed Tenzing if it weren't for Scar. She was terrifying. To get close to her almost entirely meant pain. She was the goddess of agony, as she had called herself. So, it kind of came with the title. But I was the one who dealt that final blow. It's as I said. I may have been afraid, but what made me strong is that I was able to work even with that as a aspect. He kind of looks down and kind of, with an almost pained look. You can't let fear control you.
Her eyes kind of look back and forth at that before sort of a dawning of realization appears in her eye. So that's it. Even though I was afraid, I broke the window, and even though I was afraid, I took the fall, and even though I was afraid, She glances towards Klaus's chest, where the hole had once been. It's now gone, and then looks down at the ground again, and gives a more firm nod of her head. It is okay to acknowledge that I'm afraid, but still do what has to be done.
Fear is what has kept us alive for the longest amount of time. It gives us an extra barrier of caution. As a child, I was oftentimes told stories about heroes that wandered into dragon lairs without fear, and they climbed mountains, went overseas into terrible storms and everything else. And now I look back at all of that and I'm like, that's complete bullshit. Only an idiot would never feel fear. Bravery, this idea of no fear, that doesn't exist, not to me. Stupidity exists, not bravery. But what those heroes may have had, that these dumb stories did not capture, it's courage. Courage is what fights fear, not bravery. Courage is knowing that something is terrifying, but still going through with it. How do you think I felt when I had dived down to drag Varric out of that fucking pit? If it weren't for the fact that I didn't drink much water when I had went down there, I probably would have pissed myself.
I do not blame you.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you hadn't, I think I would have, done the freezing stuff. Would have incapacitated myself, of course, but the fact that you were able to do that and get out okay, that is a relief.
Yeah, well, trust me, it was a relief to land on that fucking catwalk and not slip. But that was behind us. These are just examples.
All right. Okay. Let me try again.
Back to your feet.
Yes.
And when you feel that, try to hold it there. I'm going to do something. So if you feel yourself move when it's down there, just keep focusing.
All right. And she'll rest herself back into the training position again. Arms back where they were and closing her eyes.
He's going to position himself behind her, kind of sitting directly behind her, kind of on his knees. Hands on his knees as well. Remember to breathe.
All right, and she will. All right. Again, that very faded glow comes to her skin again. Again, traveling down towards her ankle. And again, there's that momentary hesitation, but soon it seems to move further, going past the cloth of her shoe.
As this is happening, Klaus is going to take both of his arms and put them right underneath where her armpits are. And he's just going to say focus as he's going to slowly begin to stand up and kind of bring her alongside with him to bring her to her feet.
Okay. As you do that, and as you watch the visible progress of what's happening as she's focusing, her sort of unconsciously following her movements as she's concentrating on what she's doing, the light begins to peek out from along her robes, down her other leg, slowly working its way down, but eventually making it there. And eventually you have her on her feet, and there's a momentary sort of wobble that seems to, after a bit of time of continuing to support her, starts to fade.
He's going to just begin to say, chase it, chase it. Don't let it go.
All right. Focus. And she continues, and this glow follows along the rest of her body. And soon... Oh, go ahead.
He steps away just a little bit. His arms, it is kind of with the same thing. He's that he's putting it away. He's still ready to catch her in the event that she does fall, but like at the same time, he's just like watching with almost wide eyes as he's like seeing her do it. But continue.
All right, and as you let go, still remaining within catch distance, if you notice any wobbling again, she stands there, the glow covering the entirety of her form, and again, you're kind of reminded of that being that you had seen after defeating the goddess down in those caverns, as if that see-through incorporeal being has a physical form as she stands there in her entirety, with this dim, very, very dim white glow to the entirety of her, and her posture remains firm.
No. No questions asked. Take a step.
Alright, let me do another roll.
He's still ready to catch, this time moving actually in front of her.
Alright. Still eyes closed, focusing as hard as she can. She attempts to do as you said. You see her very slowly lift her right foot, bringing it forward just an inch, and settling it down, about to move her left foot forward. There's a bit of a wobble there, but then she seems to push through and stand straight again after that very, very small step.
It's just like I said, there's things that you grow accustomed to, but remember, think of it as your first time. Channel all of your energy into your left, then your right, then your left, then your right. Your key will do it for you.
Left, right, left, right. She repeats your words, focusing still. Let me do it with. Ooh, she takes a step, and since you were at the ready, you notice the flicker of whatever this is that is encapsulating the entirety of her body suddenly flicker as her legs begin to crumple and she starts to fall, but you manage to quickly catch her just as she's about to. Unfortunately, though, as she nat 1'd this, you both end up toppling a bit, her down onto her face, and then you off to the side on your back.
Yeah, just like a...
Ow.
You're heavier than you fucking look. Ah.
Gee, thanks. Ow.
Any time, just... And he kind of like sits back up.
And she's still laying there face down for a moment. She lifts her chin up so it's just resting on the dirt. Her arms splayed out above her head right there, and she just scowls off into the distance for a moment. There's just a moment of silence before just...
It takes Klaus a moment, but he just kind of... At first he was already smiling after he kind of got up. He's still sitting on the floor, but after she starts laughing, she's just...
All right, get up. And then kind of like, wait a minute, and he's gonna go ahead and
kind of grab the area of her arm and kind of begin to stand up.
Thank you. And she'll, still laughing, take his help to help sit herself back up again, using her free arm to help push her weight up so she's seated. And eventually just wipes away this tear that had been gathering at the corner of her eye from the laugh. I wasn't imagining that, was I? Did I actually stand?
Yeah, you did. You stood, and you even walked a little bit.
And his face almost doesn't take on grim anything. He was previously smiling, but it kind of turns into something a little bit more serious. But
so there's good and bad news. It seems as though your legs might be a little bit more harmed than I thought. That being said, the good news is you already seem to be kind of amazing at this. So, if I frankly had to guess, I think your mastery might compensate for the amount of time that this takes. I don't know. I would say if you kept this up...
DM, would it be fair to say maybe a week of time?
For what?
For her healing. Like, since she did so well, frankly.
Oh, for healing? Yeah, that's a safe estimate.
Okay. I would say it would take about a week. And then he kind of... His face almost grows a little bit concerned, saddened, if anything. On your back. There are some things that There's some things that key cannot heal. You know, it's the same thing with scars, right? Scars are more than your body just repairing something that is a bit too high of an order for it to, but I feel like to some extent it serves as a reminder. That wound on my back, I don't think it will ever heal, nor on my shoulder. So I can't say that those scars on your back are going to suddenly disappear, but I can tell you one thing. It's the same thing with fear, right? I know that those other signs can indicate slavery, and, well, when we actually get around to your newer outfit, I'm sure we can cover those things up as well. But once you change your perception about those as well, they won't bother you as much. It'll take some time, that being said, but
cheerful look falls into a more neutral one as she kind of takes in that information for, and then eventually she rests one of her hands over her shoulder, fingertips reaching as far as they can to her back. Well, if these scars are related to my past and who I once was, and if who I once was is what scares me, then like the rest, I must learn to be alright with that and learn to hopefully overcome it. And there's like this kind of look of uncertainty on her face, but then she glances up at Klaus for affirmation. Right?
he while he was kind of looking down, while she was kind of ascertaining her own thoughts,
Klaus was kind of silently watching, arms folded, as she was talking, but he nods and kind of looking at that look of affirmation.
Of course, it's all you can do. You can't, to add on to what my master had said, but you can't fight something, of course, that you don't acknowledge, but, you know, even when you acknowledge something, you may not be currently strong enough to fight it. And that's where the training comes in. So you can, one day. Like I said, it's a lot more than the body that's being trained, it's the mind as well. As you continue to go through this, one day you will be able to, but, and he kind of looks around at the group. But luckily, you happen to have people who really care about you that I'm sure will be more than happy to see you through it as well.
She follows with line of sight towards the group, off in the distance. Again, a contemplative look on her face that soon melts into a softer smile. She nods her head in agreement. looking at them and then looking back at him for a moment, and once again back over towards the group. Yes, I have the lot of you, for sure.
At first, he freezes up, but
yeah, you have us.
She kind of gives like a barely visible kind of side glance at him from the corner of her eye, like, she was... I keep coughing.
You're good.
Like, she was checking to make sure if that would get a less than savorable sort of reaction, but with what he says, it makes her look his way again and just give a full-on, excitable, beaming grin again. Right. All right. Now then, I get the sense that the rest are probably going to want to start moving before whoever this person we're looking for gets too far. What exactly would be our next line of focus, or will it be similar to this?
You mean after the meditation?
For our next training or meditation, whatever it may be.
Training. Here's what I think. Like I said, we have to get you onto your feet first. I'm thinking that
Fuck, I needed to buy that yesterday. Fucked up.
you should do this again for maybe an hour a day. No more, no less. You simply need to get into the ritual of it, and doing it more than what is suggested will only either end up in exhaustion or some sort. In fact, and he kind of reaches over to her face to kind of wipe back a sweat bead.
I'll get this one.
You're probably a little bit more tired after you did that.
Her eyes kind of widen for a second as if just noticing how tired she's feeling after all that. It's just like, God, you're right. We've only been doing this for, what, a short bit of time? It feels like a run of marathon.
Like I said, it's physical, right? We haven't gotten to that part yet, really, except for your walking. Mental, I guess the talk that we had, but this practice that you did, this was purely spiritual. Everything has to deal with the others, that being said. We're going to start with the spiritual, so you can begin to get ahead with all of your ki. That's going to be the most difficult part for the meantime because, well, you're untrained in every single one of those. He says it matter-of-factly, not even in a way to, like, joke, but, like, you got some work to do.
She has kind of like a bit of a purse to her lips at that.
So naturally, you need to begin to get used to this. Then, of course, comes to more of the disciplinary areas of the mental side of the training. You are learning to take your spirit to turn it into a weapon. You need to make it to where your mind can make you work efficiently as a weapon. And eventually, physically, so you can become a weapon.
Sort of like my ability to vicious mockery without the actual magic.
I'm afraid that's beyond the three realms of spirit, body, and mind. You just happen to be able to do that effortlessly.
Drat.
But he kind of like puts a finger to his chin. Well, maybe you'll get better at that too.
go beyond that of a master. In fact, if you ever need teaching yourself, Klaus, I am happy to help. It is all about centering your inner beach. And she makes like an om gesture.
Klaus looks at her and just like his hand reaches up to his mouth, and you just hear a.
She like peeks one eye open, just get this shit-eating grin on her face at her own words.
In exchange of our confidentiality, if you ever tell anyone that I yelled at something so cheesy, actually, you know what? You can. No one would believe you.
Shit, you're right. Is this how Varric feels with his gold thing?
Likely.
Oh, terrible.
But like I said, an hour a day, doesn't matter if it's the first thing before you wake up or before you go to bed. When you find that time, and if in any case you need any extra teaching, come and find me. But I mean, you'll know me. I'm always up early in the morning. That's going to be a part of your regimen too soon. Aren't you excited?
You have to remind me.
Oh, I will. And trust me, I'm hard to be ignored.
You see her just like still groaning, lean back with her arms out until she just falls flat on her.
See what they said? Spiritual training, then we'll get to the mental side. And boy, will I have fun.
I get the sense that I respond better to incentive. Can I get like a scoop of ice cream each time I listen and get up early?
Sure. That may mean that you end up having to run a little bit. 1.5, maybe double.
Oh, you don't let me have anything fun.
Let me put it this way. If you run faster than the tsunami, you won't have to swim. That's your incentive.
We're not even near water. Well, sort of, but...
See, now you're getting it. But like I said, that's later down the road. And speaking of ice cream, and he kind of looks over at the rest of the party. Six.
Yes?
Do you, by chance, have a favorite food? Do you know if Tenzing or Varric do as well?
Well, she'll sit back up and hold her chin. Honestly, every time I try a new food that, since the group found me, it's literally my first time eating it, so I'm sort of still figuring that out, but ice cream was quite...
Yeah, I know. You cut out at quite.
Quite good.
Quite good, yeah, okay. What about the others?
Well, the others
Decent
haven't
bit of-
really spoken of their favorites that I've heard.
Shit, okay, that means I have to do some scouting.
You know, it doesn't hurt to just ask them.
He kind of like widens his eyes and kind of shakes his head in like a mocking way. He says, yeah, I suppose I could.
Or, if you're trying to keep it a surprise, sort of give like a little salute. It's just like, your student is happy to help.
And he kind of like puts a hand, kind of like opening his thumb and his index finger kind of placing it, resting it on his chin, or resting his chin on his hand. Yeah. Yeah, I think that would work.
Oh, this will be quite the surprise.
What the hell does a griffin eat?
Sort of anything. You know, one time before we met you, I saw him guzzle down a rat, I think it was. It was sort of half-eaten, so it was hard to tell.
A rat? What the... Alright. We need to get some vegetables into that one. Maybe some berries. Well. Alright. Alright, just wondering.
She
There's a break.
She kind of gets like this, again, the look of like studying him, and then a slow shit-eating grin on her face as she squints his way and leans towards him from where she's sitting.
Kind of looks over at her.
You like him, don't you?
He like kind of like has like a quick moment of panic as he's just like, everyone except for you is a guy. Which him? As he's just like, who?
Urkel.
He kind of like, his mouth opens to say something, and then he's like, and then he kind of like, actually didn't. Yeah, no, she was soon to take Urkel, but like I'm assuming he's just like playing around somewhere, still chasing after that butterfly that he missed the other time.
Yeah, you can just see him like the form of him occasionally peeking up from the tall grass, trying to snap at this little butterfly.
Just like a dancing little lion tail as he tucks his legs and shit. Oh Jesus! Oh Jesus! Oh. Klaus watches this for a moment without his face moving, and in my defense, you would have to be an utter and complete psychopath to not find a baby animal cute.
That is fair. You know.
Look at them.
Even if I don't say much sometimes, I am quite observant, you know. And she like taps the side of her head near where her eye. And every time Urkel is in the room, I notice your gaze flickers for the briefest of moments his way.
Again, like it's like almost like in a defensive way, but like you can tell he's clearly joking. It's like, can you blame me?
No, but again, this sort of falls back to the whole asking thing. Why not just ask Varric if you could hold him or pet him or whatever it is you want to do?
Well, he is Varric's, not mine. I don't want to impose.
You say that, but it's not as if Varric minds lending Urkel to people on occasion.
Well, yeah, without an entire instruction about how to carry, how to feed.
Well, you can just sort of do what I do, which is zone him out.
I don't want to get on his bad side. More than I probably already am.
She, again, has a sort of curious look to her eyes as she looks at him. I don't think that Varric has a problem with you.
I mean, a lot of you did when I first got here, so I wouldn't be surprised if that extended past just the group.
Well, yes, there was the starting sort of caution that anyone sort of gets with any stranger, but
You held
after
a longbow to my back.
I didn't actually, I sort of mocked the gesture, yes, I will admit. But
He
to be
rolled
fair,
his
that's
eyes.
me.
Continue.
Anyway, it is not as if you're a stranger anymore.
He looks down at the floor, kind of licks his lips kind of contemplatively. Well, yeah, I'm not. But
Alright, tell you what. With what you're doing now, all this, and she gestures to herself and the little dagger she has strapped along her waist that he lended her. With you helping me out with all of this, I have to repay it somehow. So, let me help with you with this. Getting more comfortable and acquainted with everyone here. Grimson, of course, is still as new as you are, so that might take a bit longer, but Tenzing and Vak, at the very least, they are good friends of mine, and I'm sure I can get them to open up more to you as well.
well, they're good people. Tenzing is kind of his eyes almost grow to a similar fondness to that he's already kind of shown Six. He's a little bit of an idiot, but he's honest. More honest than I've probably ever met anybody. I don't know how he's able to bear his heart to just about anyone. It's odd. Bad practice, if you asked me, but he doesn't seem to mind. And Varric, yeah, we come to disagreements, and yeah, sometimes he kind of makes me want to pull my hair out, but it's easy to see that he cares for everyone here, and he has a good heart.
She gives a nod of her head in agreement. But you say that as if these reasonings are why they wouldn't be able to get along better with you. You are just like them, Klaus. Yes, it's got the flaws here and there, who doesn't, but you're still a very good person. You've done good things with a good heart.
Each word kind of given.
Yes, I know, like nails on a chalkboard, I'm sure, with you, but it is how it is. And she rests her hands on her hip.
He kind of shakes his head. I don't get it. You and Nadine both, for some reason, are convinced that I'm something better than I make myself out to be.
She kind of gives like a little curious tilt of her head at that at the mention of Nadine. Well, I can't speak for Nadine, but at the very least, for me, I'm speaking from experience. You've only ever been giving, really, and patient, more patient than anyone else has ever been with myself, I will admit. You saved Varric when he was in great danger, and based off of what I've heard, which I'm still sort of reeling over, apparently when I lost consciousness, you protected me as well. And there was no obligation for you to. My other friends were there battling, and I'm sure they were hurt and needed help too, but you decided to help me, who, even though I had yet to be injured, I wasn't exactly able to defend myself. And sure, you can give me reasonings or excuses or whatever you like for these things that you did, but you still did them. I don't think Varric or myself, if you left me there, would be as we are now.
With a very familiar wounded look in his eye, he kind of looks up, back over, or looks down towards Six. I don't think the words of three that I've only known for a little less than a week are going to somehow be able to erase the words that I have been hearing for most of my life. And he kind of gives her a wry smile, a very sad one, forced, but
A momentary, look of sadness comes to her eyes at that. And she kind of looks down towards the floor. Then she gives a slow shake of her head and looks at him again with a determined look to her eyes, and the sad frown is now replaced again with a more cheery and determined grin. She's just like, well, seeing as how you will be traveling with us for however long you will be, hopefully a long time, I guess there is no other choice but to make sure to say so every single day, so that whoever these other people were that you're speaking of, all just things of the past. Eventually, the positive will outweigh.
his lip, even with his straight face, it kind of quivers before looking back. Kind of eyes darting on the floor before looking back at her. Are you sure?
Do you forget who I am? I'm rather stubborn, you. Every day, I will make sure to.
In a defeated kind of raise of the hand again, kind of with how he's been, he just kind of... Do what you want.
You say that as if I wouldn't have even without your permission. She lifts her nose like a snub.
He kind of rolls his eyes, but the sadness from his eyes kind of begin to dissipate as something more humored kind of replaces it. It's just, yeah, knowing you would have, but well. Anyway. Yeah, at least everyone seemed to like the ice cream. I know what to make. I'm thinking of, let's see, Grimson seemed to enjoy a lot of well, everything, but let's see, I saw him consume eggs. He had vegetables too. Really, whatever is in front of his face. Hmm. Since you're going to be my student, at about 8 to 7 o'clock. No, 7, yeah. Around when the sun begins to dip down. I think that you should come with me. I can teach you how to cook.
A surprised look comes to her expression. Really?
Yeah. Really. It's you see, with my teacher, he didn't just teach me how to fight. There were other pieces of that he also taught me. Well, and again, he was about to say something, but almost like a pained look appears again. I originally learned to cook from my mother. But eventually, of course, it was just sparse. You know, I couldn't do it very often. So eventually, I got down to my master's area, and that's where I was able to continue to learn. Got pretty good at it, in fact.
Huh. So you learned from both your master and your mother?
Yeah, I did.
You said that your master was rather strict and tough. What was your mother like?
He kind of takes a moment before looking at the others, and he's like, "Oh hell, it seems like they're still busy." And he goes ahead and collapses his legs, kind of sitting back down onto the floor, crisscross.
Six kind of again crosses her legs and rests her elbows on her knees to prop her chin up on her palms and just give him her full attention and curiosity.
She was the kindest person that I have ever met. She was selfless, caring, empathetic. She always, even if she didn't always have the right thing to say, even if that such a thing exists, she would always just sit and listen at best. Kind of a almost, I'd like to say, forlorn look kind of comes to his face. I'm kind of mixing in, coalescing with the happiness that also shone, and she is probably one of the best people. No, she is the best person that I know.
A wonderful lady, then.
The best. She and again, more pain kind of comes to his face. She was and just kind of passively he begins to pluck grass out of the floor, out of the ground, as he kind of passively thinks. In fact, you know, sometimes I find that oftentimes whenever you or Tenzing or any of the others, whenever they had issues, problems, a lot of the words that I would say oftentimes were things that she told me. Either that or my master. My master, he taught me. He taught me how to, control those inner sides. But I guess you could say my mother. She always, I guess, helped me keep intact with it. And if you ever hear me say mater or pater, it's because that's how I actually address them. Mother and father are weird for my mouth to say.
Mutter and Potter?
Yeah. It's for a moment. Yeah, he almost slips. It's a more it's how people at my hometown would speak.
Sort of with the inflection that you do?
Yeah. It's kind of like what you could say its own subculture. It's the easiest way I can put it. You have so many cultures inside of the south and the north, and sometimes smaller areas can kind of grow from that, so to speak. Yeah.
What was your hometown sort of like if everyone had the same inflection as you?
The temple, the Stalia temple. You saw how it had like this rectangular look with. I'm assuming it had like big, like pillars and everything and whatnot too, right? Like marble pillars.
Yeah.
Well, here's a fun thing. That is actually what my people would call a Parthenon. It's actually based off of my culture's way of building things.
Really?
Yeah. Which, I don't know. It's homely. Well, yeah, it's homely.
Do you ever miss your home?
Doesn't everyone wish sometimes that they could go back to simpler times?
She looks down at the ground with a thoughtful look at them. Do they?
Maybe. And he kind of looks back over towards the camp. And kind of looks, kind of gestures towards Tenzing. I'm sure he does. After what happened, getting forced down here, I'm sure he'd like nothing more than to just go back to it all, maybe.
She also looks in his direction. Yeah. He probably does.
You're not religious either, are you?
She shakes her head no. Why do you ask?
Never tell him I said this. But Tenzing is Tenzing is kind of similar to my mother in that he is also one of somehow the nicest people I've met. And what pisses me off more than anything is that it seems as though even for people like that, honorable, selfless people, something always bad happens to them. And I don't get it. What kind of forum of gods would ever have it to where actual good people always suffer? I guess the same gods who make the erasure a thing. Just piss on the entirety of being a person. They call it humanity, but it's bigger than that. Shitting on all of life. I can't get behind a god when somebody does things like that.
She leans back a bit, still legs crossed, but resting her hands now on the grass behind her and looks up towards the... Well, at least from what I've seen and experienced so far, it seems that that's just what life is, isn't it? A lot of pain and a lot of sadness and suffering, and people having to live through it. But at the same time, she... coughing fit again.
He just quickly says, I wish they didn't.
Sorry, I had a coughing fit again.
No, you're good. That's why I'm saying it right now.
She looks towards the group from the corner of her eye. But amongst all that bad, there is good littered throughout here and there.
I'm assuming he's probably still petting the small Grimson duck as he was before. And he kind of finds himself smiling a little bit. Yeah, I suppose.
Honestly, if it weren't for the lot of them, it is possible that someone else probably would have found me, and I'd either be in a home or living on the streets or worse. And she kind of unconsciously rubs her thumb along the wrist of her hand. So, despite all the death and monsters and creatures. I think this is probably what the best outcome for myself.
What was that last part? One more time?
The best outcome for myself.
Yeah. You really seem to trust them, do you?
To an extent, yes. She gives him sort of a goofy grin at that, and he's just like, you have yet to experience it for yourself, but continue to travel with us, and it is very likely that you might find yourself behind bars.
He kind of gives out a bit of a nervous chuckle. Is that so?
But we do manage to get out of it each time without, well, legally, of course. As for the inns that we get kicked out of, there's a look of frustration on her face at the mention of that, as someone who has clearly time and time again been kicked out of an inn and not happy about it. We always find another one.
Can you run me how the hell that actually went on? I don't get it. How did you guys get kicked out of what, 5?
About that much, yes.
I know that you had one severe bumbling idiot in the form of Kovacs in your party, but I doubt that was all him.
A momentary sad look comes to her eyes at the mention of Kovacs before, again, it's gone, and she looks. You are not wrong. Vark was also responsible for one of them.
That sounds about right.
Yes, he got his hands on these illusionary cards or something, and there was a lady there who offered our fortune or something of the sort. And after she did that, Varric offered to tell her fortune, and she pulled a card, and it caused the illusion of a hill giant to appear in the center of the inn.
He tried to pull a prank on. Okay. Was he at least aware that something of that magnitude would happen?
Oh, absolutely.
And he kind of like looks over towards where Varric is. Just shakes his head before looking back over at her. What were the other ones?
Well, this was one of Kovacs's. Vidalia had wanted us to see her, and well, she kind of squints as she tries to think back on the memory. Well, to be more precise, her and her guards came towards the inn to bring us to the prison to speak with us, and as she was about to have us escorted, Kovacs decided to use some sort of spell or some sort to cover the place in smoke and try to...
I'm going to be honest. Sometimes he kind of like pauses to almost word himself more carefully. I'm almost glad that I did not end up running into Kovacs, because I'm positive I would have snapped him upside the head at least once.
Oh, a good number of us got upset with him a number of times.
Yeah, but none of you hit him.
She thinks about it and is just like, sort of. Kovac sort of asked Varg to hit him.
What?
It was sort of Kovac's way of apologizing and trying to get hard feelings out.
So they fought.
She makes like a kind of gesture with her hand. It was mostly Kovac's trying to egg him on to hit him as hard as he can.
Oh, like that one day in the Stalia where you... Like that?
You cut out.
Oh, like that one time in the Stalia where you tried to... When you had stubbed my toe? Like you wanted to hit him to kind of apologize?
She winces at that. She's like, you're really not ever going to drop that, are you?
It was the only available actual example that I had.
Okay, fair. That was more under the fact that you looked like you were seconds away from berating that poor girl about ruining your favorite dish.
No comment.
She arches a brow at him at that. Mm-hmm. I will admit, I do not apologize for doing it, because honestly, it is not nice to be rude sometimes. Sometimes it is okay. In that exact position, it was not.
In my defense, I was underneath the impression that she was trying to poison me. You can never be too sure.
Just because she cooked it wrong.
Black soup is supposed to taste succulent, sweet, a little bit meaty. That tasted like... Oof.
He looks for a description, but instead you just see like goosebumps appear as he just like shakes, shivers, just like ugh. Cringes visibly at the idea of it.
That was... Oh no, that was like the opposite of what cleaning magic thing that Varric does. That's more or less, it feels like she just dumped every single bit of soiled piece of shit into that bowl.
She leans over to give like a playful smack at his arm at that. She's like, you are awful.
So was the soup.
Fair enough. She gives like a very fond shake of her head.
Yeah.
As I was saying though, I don't apologize for that. I do apologize that I hit you a lot harder than I planned on you.
Yeah, that's what happens when you kick someone that doesn't wear shoes.
See, I wasn't thinking that far ahead.
He like almost opens his mouth to say something, but he like closes and is just like,
well, continue with what you were saying about them.
Oh, right. Basically, Kovacs was trying to apologize in his own way by getting Varric to hit him. And Varric, bless his weak little arms, did his best. Didn't hit very hard, of course, but did his best.
I mean, I remember when we were inside of the inn. I've seen his body before. It's when it doesn't have a minor illusion in front of it, it's somewhat impressive. Well, no, it's not. Wait, sorry, I was thinking of the minor illusion. It's not.
She like covers her laughter with her hand. It's just like I feel sort of bad shit talking him when he's too far to hear.
To be fair, he's a thespian. Did we honestly expect something greater from him?
That is awful.
He kind of like shrugs. It's like, yeah, I'm being shitty, but like, That being said, though, I mean, talk all I want about his physique or whatever, but he's a good guy. If not part-time a thorn in my side, but a good guy nonetheless.
He is. Honestly, I wouldn't take a lot of what he says to you to heart too much. He's oftentimes in his own head and own world a lot.
You've seen. At first, I was under the impression that that's how he normally was, but I guess adventuring with you guys showed me a little bit more.
Yeah, and as big of a headache they can be sometimes, they're a good lot. Honestly, I'm a little relieved to have you here, with Scar no longer in the picture. It
It
would have
would have
sort of-
been like a whole bunch of headless chickens.
Exactly. And as much as I like to have fun and do my own sort of thing sometimes, I'm not exactly the sort to go and try to get arrested or kicked out of places, unless they deserve it.
No, I get it. Shit, what was I gonna say?
Also, for the sake of Heath, I'm gonna start wrapping up a tiny bit.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just trying to remember.
That's all good.
Go ahead. I'll probably remember.
Alright. So with that, she sort of gives a long, tired sigh of someone who had to deal with the mess this group has made repeatedly and not been able to do anything. And it's just like, so for that and many other reasonings, now I'm glad you are here.
Kind of. At first, his hands were kind of like folded on his lap, but he kind of folds his arms and kind of stands up himself. Yeah, you guys aren't that bad. Kind of has like a bit of a humored half smile.
Coming from you, that is the biggest compliment.
Just don't get so used to it.
Can't say the same for you, because after all, and she'll carefully, with the help of the stick she had set aside, get herself back on her feet. As I mentioned before, to replace the old, I would be making sure to remind you every day. So, let's see how to start off today. She holds her chin thoughtfully, thinking really hard. Klaus, the fact that you are willing to teach me this and cooking now, you are very generous and kind. There we are. Look forward to tomorrow as well.
I'm pretty sure that just hit harder than any of you could have possibly physically.
You're welcome.
Just And he kind of becomes a bit contemplative. Thank you for listening to me for all of this. Yeah.
She gives less of a playful smile and more of a genuine smile at that, and happy to. Well, come on now. I'm sure the others are waiting for us.
Yeah. Why were you all lifting your shirts earlier? Oh, and then you guys started doing push-ups?
Lifting our shirts? What?
I could have sworn you and Varric did like a push-up competition.
Oh, yes. That was me trying to show off.
Yeah, you two were doing that, and Tenzing was... He kind of stops doing Tenzing things.
As Tenzing does, I'm sure.
He kind of like slowly nods, as if he's like seeing something that's not actually there. Yeah. Well, anyways, we need to get the fucking move on.
Alright. And the two of you head back, walking in the direction of the group. In a comfortable, companionable silence. And that is where this will end.
Fuck!